The War of David versus Goliath. The giant versus man. A figure of a giant who reigns and casts terror is fighting against a man whose status is lower than all the soldiers, yet he is the bravest of them all. We will discover the amazing story of a shepherd who emerged from nowhere and fought the giant who was protected from head to toe. The most flawed character in the Bible and at the same time the most charismatic and impressive of them all is that of King David. King David was one of the most decorated leaders in the Bible. There was no leader who won as many titles as David. This is how the Bible details his qualifications. He knows how to play, and a mighty warrior, and a man of war, and a wise man, and a man of honor, and the name is with him. Samuel 1:16. The Bible, which devotes many chapters to the exploits of King David and provides detailed reports about his battles, intrigues, alliances, and betrayals, is notably careful to avoid mentioning his childhood. It is strange, because one of the constant patterns that characterize the descriptions of leaders in literature, and in the Bible, is the description of their childhood and birth. Jacob, Moses, Samson, Joseph, Samuel, Jesus, all had a detailed description of their childhood. Moses was plucked from the river, Shmuel was born to a barren woman, Abraham comes with a genealogy, Saul comes with a genealogy. While the book of Samuel, which devotes more than 40 chapters to the life of David, does not provide him with genealogy and mentions only the name of his father, Ishai. The Bible mentions the names of all the mothers of the kings of the house of David except for one king, David himself. David, on the other hand, emerges from his mother's womb right at the age of 28, when we meet him for the first time tending sheep in Bethlehem. So where did David come from? The Bible does not tell us the story of David's birth, does not provide us with his genealogy, and does not talk about his mother because his origin is a controversial matter that he prefers to avoid. The tradition of the book of Ruth, according to which David is a descendant of Moabite, is actually only a version 1 of an ancient tradition that links David's family to the peoples of the Transjordan, and in particular to Moab. Two passing notes in the books of Samuel and Kings may indicate that this tradition was known to the authors of these books. His father, Ishai, appointed him to be in charge of the family's flock, and in the first part of his life until his anointing as king, he acquired many skills. Samuel the prophet came to the house of Ishai to anoint one of Ishai's sons as king, according to God's command. But God did not tell him which of the 7 sons of Ishai would be the king. Samuel arrives at Ishai's house, and when he sees Eliab, Ishai's firstborn, beautiful and tall like Saul, he thinks that God has chosen him to be king. But God tells him, "Do not look at his appearance and at his height, because you will deceive him, because it is not where man sees. Because man sees with the eyes and God sees with the heart." Despite Eliab being tall and impressive, he was disqualified for kingship. Now meet the giants, Goliath, David's opponent. The Bible documents the existence of giants in the ancient period. The initial biblical documentation of the sons of giants is already mentioned in Genesis 6:4. The Nephilim were in the land in those days. There is another record in the Bible, which mentions the kingdom of ghosts whose subjects were giants, Deuteronomy 2:11, from which Og even came and took control of the Bashan, Deuteronomy 3:11. The Bible also tells us that when the spies came to survey the land, and to see if it was suitable for settlement, they saw the giants in the Hebron area, Bamidbar 13:22. Also the battle between David and his army and Goliath and his brothers who were giants. And they are mentioned in the Bible as the sons of Harper, that is, as the sons of the kingdom of ghosts. In an Egyptian papyrus called Onostosi, which was written by a military scribe named Hori, and dated to the 13th century BC. A record of the situation in the land of Israel is presented, and this is how he says, "Full of horses are hiding. They are 4 or 5 cubits tall and follow them up to their noses. It is extremely interesting to see the correspondence between the height described in the Anastasi papyrus, which reaches over 5 cubits, and the one described in the Bible about Goliath whose height was 6 cubits. Samuel 1 chapter 27 verse 4, and also the bed of Og the king of Bashan, described in the Bible in verse 9 cubits euro, Deuteronomy 3 verse 11. This is without a doubt one of the exceptions of the human species, but it is by no means avoided. For the purpose of explaining the size, the length of cubit is about half a meter, therefore, the height of the depicted giants is around 2.5 to 3 or 3.5 meters. Goliath was a giant, 6 cubits and a finger high. In addition to his enormous size, Goliath was armored from head to toe. His offensive weapon is a thickened spear, whose purpose is to throw from close range in such a way that it penetrates iron armor and even the warrior's shield. A sword intended for sharpening and beating that appears only at the end of the battle when David uses it to decapitate Goliath. In addition to the sword, Goliath had a javelin which remained in the warrior's hand during the battle, and a man carrying a shield who walked before him. Samuel 1, chapter 17, 4-7. A champion named Goliath, who was from Gath, came out of the Philistine camp. His height was 6 cubits and a span. He had a bronze helmet on his head and wore a coat of scale armor of bronze weighing 5,000 shekels. On his legs he wore bronze greaves, and a bronze javelin was slung on his back. His spear shaft was like a weaver's rod, and its iron point weighed 600 shekels. His shield bearer went ahead of him. Goliath the Philistine giant then came out and mocked the Israelites. He did this every morning and every evening for 40 days. He called to them, "Choose one of your men to fight with me. If he wins and kills me, we will be your slaves. But if I win and kill him, you will be our slaves. Give me a man to fight me." Among the voices is heard Israel, who says that whoever kills Goliath will receive great wealth, the king's daughter as a wife, an exemption from royal duties. David, who did not hear the words of the man of Israel, asks the people in the battle what the one who kills Goliath will win. While expressing contempt for Goliath and wondering why Goliath dared to speak like that about the God of Israel. Samuel 1, chapter 17, 25-27. Now the Israelites had been saying, "Do you see how this man keeps coming out? He comes out to defy Israel. The king will give great wealth to the man who kills him. He will also give him his daughter in marriage and will exempt his family from taxes in Israel." David asked the men standing near him, "What will be done for the man who kills this Philistine and removes this disgrace from Israel? Who is this uncircumcised Philistine that he should defy the armies of the living God?" They repeated to him what they had been saying and told him, "This is what will be done for the man who kills him." David's brother Eliab sees him in battle and scolds him for leaving the flock to watch the battles. David answers that he does not see anything wrong with his actions, and the very fact that he went down is a big thing. David's words reach the ears of King Saul, who understands that David is a man of courage and jealous of God. Saul summons David to him, and a dispute develops between David and Saul regarding David's ability to fight with an experienced military man like Goliath. To prove David's ability, he says that while he was a shepherd, he fought a lion and a bear that would often come to devour the sheep, and he won, so he would also win over Goliath. Samuel 1, chapter 17, verses 34-37. But David said to Saul, "Your servant has been keeping his father's sheep. When a lion or a bear came and carried off a sheep from the flock, I went after it, struck it, and rescued the sheep from its mouth. When it turned on me, I seized it by its hair, struck it and killed it. Your servant has killed both the lion and the bear. This uncircumcised Philistine will be like one of them, because he has defied the armies of the living God." The Lord who rescued me from the paw of the lion and the paw of the bear will rescue me from the hand of this Philistine." Saul said to David, "Go, and the Lord be with you." David goes to the stream, takes 5 stones and puts them in his shepherd's bag. He also took his slingshot and went out towards the giant Goliath. When Goliath saw him, he couldn't believe his eyes. And he was sure that it was easy to kill the skinny little David. "If you only come near me," said Goliath, "I will give your flesh to the birds of the sky and to the beasts." David answered him, "You come to me with a sword, a spear and a javelin, and I come to you in the name of God. This day God will give you into my hand and I will strike you down." When the battle between them begins, in order to subdue his opponent, David takes advantage of the one weak point he finds in him: his exposed forehead. He took his slingshot and struck one powerful blow that killed Goliath. When Goliath fell, the Philistines began to flee from the Israelites, either because they did not want to keep the agreement or because they recognized the judgment of the gods, and believed that they would be defeated if they entered into a frontal war. This is how the war between the giant and the man ended. And this is how David rose to greatness, becoming one of the greatest kings in history. One more story has come to an end. We hope you learned something new today. If you did, give this video a like and share it with your friends. And don't forget to subscribe to our channel for more informative and entertaining content. See you next time.